and welcome back to Voyage of a Time Wanderer. Today I am so excited to be here to share my Victober 2021 TBR. So I've been joining in the Victober Fund since 2016, and it's certainly become a highlight of my reading year, so I'm very grateful to the hosts, Howe, Katie from Books and Things, and Lucy from Lucy the Reader, for continuing to host this wonderful event here on Booktube to celebrate Victorian classics. I also this year got a Victober shirt from Pixie Hollow's Etsy shop, so I'm very excited to have this wonderful shirt to cozy up in throughout the month of October, so that I can really embrace the Victober vibes. So I have my stack of Victorian classics here, and I will go through each of these and share the books that I'm hoping to read and how they match with this year's Victober challenges. So the first challenge is Kate Howe's challenge, and that is to read a Victorian sensation novel, and for that I'm hoping to read The Woman in White by Wilkie Collins. Over the past year, I have read both my first Wilkie Collins books and my first sensation novel, Lady Audley's Secret, and I really enjoyed both of these, so I'm very excited to get to The Woman in White this Victober. I absolutely love this edition that I found at my local secondhand bookshop. I think the cover design is just stunning and definitely has kind of that spooky, ghost-like vibe that I have heard rings true with the plotline for The Woman in White. So on the back it says, on a moonlit road in Hampstead, Walter Hartright is accosted by a stranger dressed from head to toe in white. She asks the way to London, and no sooner has Walter directed her than is overtaken by a carriage in pursuit of the mysterious woman who has evidently escaped from an asylum. From this single incident, Walter unwinds a thrilling story of abduction, madness, false identity, and shameful family secrets. The Woman in White, published in 1860, is both a Victorian sensation novel and a detective story. It established Collins as a popular author and has never been out of print. So before I read Lady Audley's Secret this year, I actually had been avoiding Victorian sensation novels because I totally had the wrong impression of them. I thought that they were the equivalent of kind of like mass market paperback trashy novels, not that they just had like a gripping thriller kind of plot. And now that I have read and loved Lady Audley's Secret, I just want to read every sensation novel I can get my hand on. So I'm so excited to get to The Woman in White. I've heard nothing but good things about this and Wilkie Collins as a sensation novelist. And I think the themes that it's going to discuss sound fascinating, and it looks like the perfect kind of spooky fall read. Then Katie's challenge was to read a Victorian novel set in either the city or the countryside, and or read a novel with both. So I have picked two for that challenge. The first is my pick for read a book set in the city, and for that I have Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's The Sign of the Four. This is the second novel in the Sherlock Holmes series. It's going to be a reread for me. I've been wanting to reread the Sherlock stories, but kind of not wanting to necessarily go back to The Study in Scarlet because that's not my favorite in the series. And it was like, you know what, I've already read the whole series. I can jump around and just reread my favorites if I want to, so I'm going to read The Sign of the Four, which I remember being one of my favorites when I was reading through the series for the first time, and I found this really cool edition that is the 1892 illustrated edition. So it's like got the original cover image and they've reproduced with the original illustrations inside. So I thought that that was a pretty neat edition to read from. We've got Sherlock solving a problem here. Just a really neat bind up of The Sign of the Four. It's a super short, quick read, and since it's a reread for me, I'm assuming it won't take very long, so I'm planning on having this be my kickoff read for Victober and focusing on it for the first, maybe Friday, Saturday of Victober. This is the second book in the Sherlock series, like I said, and the little one-liner on the back says, the plot involves service in India, the Indian Rebellion of 1857, a stolen treasure, and a secret pact among 4 convicts, the 4 referenced in the title, and 2 corrupt prison guards, and of course, Sherlock Holmes. So the Sherlock Holmes stories for me are always very evocative of the city of London, and so I think this is the perfect read to fit the city half of Katie's challenge. And then for the countryside portion of the challenge, I am planning to read Lorna Doone by R.D. Blackmoore. This edition I also picked up at my local secondhand shop, and it has this sticker that I can't get off. Lorna Doone is the Victober book pick for Kate Howe's Victorian Patreon book club, so I'll be reading this title with that lovely group of people, and I'm so excited about that. And the back of this says, Lorna Doone, A Romance of Exmoor, is a historical novel of high adventure set in the southwest of England during the turbulent time of Monmouth's Rebellion in 1685. It is also a moving love story told through the life of the young farmer John Ridd as he grows to manhood, determined to right the wrongs in his land and to win the heart and hand of the beautiful Lorna Doone. Continuously in print since its first publication in 1869, Lorna Doone has remained perennially popular with a wide readership ever since. So my understanding of this book is that it is very much set in the countryside, and we're following, a young farmer and the whole collection of people living in this rural area, so I think it will be the perfect read for the countryside prompt. And I'm also excited to read more Victorian historical fiction. So this is talking about a rebellion that took place in 1685. So this would have been historical fiction in the Victorian era, written about events that were already about 150 years old. Last Victober, The Tale of Two Cities by Charles Dickens was one of my favorite reads of the year, actually, but of Victober specifically, and that was also Victorian historical fiction. So I really find it interesting to read how Victorians were writing about these historical events, so I think this is going to be also fascinating from that perspective as well. Then Lucy's challenge was to read a book with a female main character, and for that I have Villette by Charlotte Bronte. This is one of the 2 Bronte books that I have left that I haven't read, so I haven't read Villette or The Professor. But when I saw this prompt about having a female main character, I knew I would choose this one versus The Professor, which has a male main character. To read the back of Villette, with neither friends nor family, Lucy Snow sets sail from England to find employment in a girls' boarding school in the small town of Villette. There she struggles to retain her self-possession in the face of unruly pupils, a headmistress who spies on her staff, and her own complex feelings, first for the school's English doctor and then for the dictatorial professor, Paul Emanuel. Drawing on her own experience as a teacher in Brussels, Charlotte Bronte's last and most autobiographical novel is a powerfully moving study of the pain of unrequited love, narrated by a heroine determined to preserve an independent spirit in the face of adverse circumstances. So I have been trying to work my way through the Bronte canon, so I am excited to pick this one up and get one book closer to finishing off all of their novels. And the other reason that really motivated me to pick it up this year is that in doing my own genealogical family history research, I have found that I had an ancestor who worked as a teacher in a school in Belgium. Around the 1810s or 1820s is when my ancestor was living in Belgium and working as a teacher. She was of French descent, but born in Belgium. Her family had moved there after the Revolution, and then she ended up marrying a Dutch military officer who was posted there during the Napoleonic Wars. So having that personal connection, I'm even more intrigued to find out what life was like in Belgium at the time, particularly for young women working as teachers. So even though this is a bit of a thick and intimidating Bronte book, I think that having that personal connection is really going to keep me interested in following the events of this book. Then the group challenge is to read a popular Victorian novel that you haven't read yet, and for that I have Far from the Madding Crowd by Thomas Hardy. This is a book that I have been meaning to get to forever, and when I picked it up at my secondhand shop, I was surprised by how short it was, because in my head I had kind of worked it up to being a bit of an intimidating classic, and it's actually not that long. And I finished my first Hardy earlier this year. I read The Mayor of Casterbridge, so I'm feeling renewed confidence in my capabilities to read Thomas Hardy, and this is a book that I feel like so many people have read and I hear referenced so often, but I have not yet been spoiled for, so I am wanting to read it now before I get spoilers, and so that I can watch the movie adaptation hopefully during Victober as well. What I know about this book is that it is about a young woman, Bathsheba Everdeen, and her 3 suitors as she takes over the running of a farm that she inherits. That's kind of what I have in my mind about what the plot is, and I don't really want to read more because I don't want to get spoiled for the ending and what happens with this love triangle, love square thing that is going on. So that is my pick for the group challenge. Then I'm also going to be joining in with the group read of Elizabeth Gaskell's Gothic Tales. So this is a collection of 9 of Gaskell's short stories. I've never read any of her short stories, I've only read her novels, so I'm interested to see how her writing style, I guess, translates to the shorter medium. The back here says, Elizabeth Gaskell's chilling Gothic tales blend the real and the supernatural in eerie, compelling effect. Disappearances, inspired by local legends of mysterious vanishings, mixes gossip and fact. Lois the Witch, a novella based on an account of the Salem witch hunts, shows how sexual desire and jealousy lead to hysteria, while in the old nurse's story, a mysterious child roams the freezing Northumberland moors. Whether darkly surreal, such as the Poor Clare, where an evil doppelganger is formed by a woman's bitter curse, or mischievous, like Curious If True, a playful reworking of fairy tales, all the pieces in this volume form a stark contrast to the social realism of Gaskell's novels, revealing a darker and more unsettling style of writing. So I'm super curious to see what Elizabeth Gaskell's Gothic kind of supernatural writing, because the other books that I've read by her, Wives and Daughters, and North and South, and I've seen the Cranford miniseries, those are all very realistic fiction, so it's kind of a different vibe for her to be doing this spooky, supernatural kind of bend, and I think it's going to be perfect for the month of October to be reading through these short stories. I'm planning to read like 1 or 2 each weekend in Victober, and that's how I'm going to split up the book over the course of the month. And then lastly, the bonus challenge was to read a work of Victorian fiction aloud or have it read to you. And so I'm kind of cheating and going with another audiobook that I want to add to my TBR, and that is Barchester Towers by Anthony Trollope. That's the second book in his Barchester series. I read The Warden like maybe 3 Victobers ago now, and I've been trying to continue on with the series. So I'm going to be buddy reading Barchester Towers with another friend that I met here on Booktube, and starting at the beginning of Victober with this book, so I'm feeling really good for my chances to actually read it and enjoy it this time around. I've heard so many good things from people who have continued on with the Barchester series, about the series as a whole and some of the later books in the series. So I'm definitely feeling motivated to actually finish Barchester Towers this year so I can continue on with the Barchestershire series in future Victobers. So I have the description for Barchester Towers here. Trollope's comic masterpiece of plotting and backstabbing opens as the Bishop of Barchester lies on his deathbed. Soon a pitched battle breaks out over who will take power, involving, among others, the zealous reformer Dr. Proudie, his fiendish wife, and the unctuous schemer Obadiah Slope. Barchester Towers is one of the most loved novels in Trollope's Chronicles of Barchester series, which captured 19th century provincial England with wit, worldly wisdom, and an unparalleled gift for characterization. So I think Barchester Towers, with its focus on village life and high church politics, will be an interesting mix to add into my Victober TBR. So this is my stack of Victorian classics that I'm hoping to get through this Victober. If you're participating in Victober, I hope you have an absolutely lovely month of reading Victorian classics. I would love to hear some of the books that you're prioritizing on your TBR. And until next time, enjoy wandering through the pages of a good book. Bye.